our feet and a light to our path. Let these words, let our actions and our meditations, and let our actions speak the truth, speak your word for this day. Amen. I love kids. I know I've said it a million times. I know also somebody said to me, I've told you a million times, don't exaggerate. But I'm standing here today, having just returned from a lovely vacation in the South where I was once again reminded that children see. They see in ways that adults don't see. I was reminded twice. First, the first time was actually, there were 4 days of torrential rains when I was there. It was after about 4 days of getting there, the clouds and the heavens opened up, and for 4 days, rain poured. The wind blew off the Pacific, and it actually poured into in my place, and it was like a hurricane. It was really something. And I was huddled under blankets, and I was reading books, and I was talking on Facebook, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what changes do I need to make if I'm going to have visitors? Because, in fact, I plan to have visitors. And then the rain stopped. And funnily enough, just before the sun burnt off all of the clouds and the mist and all of there was a spectacular rainbow in the western sky. It was stunningly beautiful, and it was the full arc, and the colors were bright, and the clouds were dark, and that's when a rainbow shows up the brightest, right? Is against dark. It was stunning. And the rains had stopped, and I was hungry, and there were no groceries, so I was able to get out into the muddy streets. And the water is still in the streets like this, so you had to wear your flip-flops, the ones that are waterproof, and you slop through the rain. And the kids were in the streets, and they were playing, and every once in a while, a child would turn around and look at the rainbow. Their mouths would be open. And then they'd get back to playing. It was spectacular. I don't think they cared much about the science of a rainbow, and I don't know that they even knew much about this story that we're reading. I just saw spellbound wonder. That was the first time. The second time was 4 days before I had to come home. It was carnival time, right? Mardi Gras was Tuesday. In every Catholic country around the world, Mardi Gras was Tuesday. Well, this was the Friday before, and there's 4 days of carnival. And I heard that it's this great celebration. So I went Friday, and what was happening, the town was getting all ready for it. People out in the streets, sweeping the cobblestone streets and moving the dust around, and garbage was being picked up, and the carny rides were coming into town, and they were getting set up near the town square. You know, the rides and the games of chance and the roulette wheels and yes, there was a tequila bar on both sides of the square, and they were just all getting ready. And so I figured Friday, 7 o'clock, I'll show up. You could have dropped a bomb. There was nobody there at 7 o'clock. And these were not big adult rides. These were little kiddie rides. And they were all going, but there was nobody in them. And so I asked the passerby, my Spanish is good enough to be able to say, where are the people? And he said, come back at 9. Okay. So I came back at 9, and sure enough, the place was teeming. 9 o'clock, and it was all ages, 0 to 90. Kids were there, and they were dressed in their finery. Women had spike heels on that high in the cobblestone streets, and they know how to do that. They know how to do that. Anyway, and there they were, these family groups, all riding. The kids were screaming on the rides, and the carnies were whipping the roulette wheels around, and the little dartboards, and the rifle things, and all that was going on. It was, and at one point, I need to also say that the music was live. It was live Mexican music. It started at 9 o'clock. It played till 3 in the morning. And there were people there at 3 in the morning, from 0 to 90. It was crazy. At one point, I noticed this little toddler, couldn't have been more than 4, dressed like a cowboy. You know, his cowboy boots and his Wranglers and his cowboy hat. And his cotton candy, which he held like, you know, was like this. It was kind of drooping. And he was stone struck, only his cotton candy was down here. I noticed the street dog come by and lick it. And he was dumbfounded. He was just, The lights of the rides were flashing, the wheels of the games of chance were going, the music was going, and he was... You know, I could judge this, all of the success, right? All of this money spent, and these Mexican people can't afford to be doing this. And I could have moved to this place of patriarchal judgment. I could have done that. But all I saw were family groups, moms and dads and grandmas and kids in their finery out at the carnival at 10 o'clock at night, and everybody's having a great time. I saw teenagers, like they're 14, and they're all kind of giggly and in this puppy love kind of stage, and boys and girls were trying to mate, and they were giggling and laughing. You know, 14-year-olds are. And I saw this little toddler with his cotton candy, the blue stuff, dripping. Awesome. Staring wide-eyed in wonder like the kids in the rainbow. I don't know why, we don't know why, the story of Noah got recorded the way that it did. We do know that this is pre-Moses, this is pre-Sinai, where the Ten Commandments show up. This is pre-Abraham and Sarah. This is a foundational story. It's a story that was handed down. We don't even know why, where it came from. It's just arrived in those first 9, 10, 11 chapters of Genesis as a foundational story. We don't know. There's no context. It's just arrived. It might be as simple as a 4-year-old staring at a rainbow, saying, where did that come from? And a mystic and a storyteller spun a story. It would always be about God. God and life were never separate, so God was deeply involved in this story. But it might have been a story about where the rainbow came from. It might have been. We don't know. We can be sure that it's legend. Or we can chase the science of a flood, and there's lots of stories of a flood in all of the religions of the world, so there might have been a big flood, but I don't think that's very interesting. I think this legend, the power of the legend lies, or the power of the story lies in its detail. And we know that it's legend. We can know that because of the repetition. This is key to the story, is the repetition. The writer's intentional about it. There are 3 references to the words never again. 3. There are 6 references to my covenant. God says, my covenant, everlasting covenant, is mine. There are 9 references to every living creature of all flesh. 9. And there are 11 references to every and all. 11 in just 18 verses. In 8 verses, not 18, 8 verses. That's intentional by the story recorder. It's a little bit judgmental. It has some moralism to it, this story. So we think it might come from a priestly source out of ancient Israel. But that doesn't matter. We need to receive it as a living story, foundational to our faith, in the way that it was foundational to Hebrews back then. So, we've been given this tradition, this story, this legend of God. It's a legend about God and God's actions. And all we need to do is look at the verbs attached to God. God says things. God said or sang. God establishes. And the verb that's used is this both it happened and it's happening. I am establishing. Means that it's happened and it continues to happen today. I am establishing. God makes things. God sets things in motion. God brings the clouds. God remembers. God sees. This is a legend about an understanding of the divine. The key word, in my mind, is the word covenant. Covenant, in Hebrew, is a word that we might understand as a trade agreement. Covenant is not a nice, touchy-feely, soft word. When the Hebrews were speaking about covenants, they were speaking about trade agreements. And in fact, if we look at the way covenants were addressed in the Hebrew Bible, they're written in the same formula as ancient trade agreements between empires. And in a covenant, in this case, it could be one-sided or it could be two-sided. There could be an offer made by God, and in this case, it's an offer made by God. Or there could be two players. There's an offer and there's an acceptance. But covenant is clearly a trade agreement about God. And in this, God is making an everlasting covenant with what? All creatures, all flesh upon the earth. Never again. 3 times it gets said. Never again will the waters of a flood cut off life. This is the covenant that God establishes, has established, and is establishing. Now, the story of Noah ends with this text, this is where it ends. And the flood, the story of the flood ends with this text that we read. And nowhere has Noah signed up. Nowhere has Noah agreed. There's no place that Noah says, yeah, I'll buy into that. It's just God saying, there. There's just the offer. And it's timeless and it comes to us. It's a legend about the epic awesomeness of God that I said earlier speaks to us uniquely. It spoke to them, it speaks to us. It's a foundational story of our faith. And so I invite you to hear it again from this perspective. A foundational story of your faith. And listen for all the everys and the alls. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, as for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal of the earth that was with you in the ark. I establish my covenant that never again shall all flesh be cut off from the waters of a flood. And never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that's with you for all generations. I've set my bow in the sky, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. This is a trade agreement. This is a legal, it's written in kind of legalese. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is in the sky, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall never again become a flood. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and I will remember. This is the sign of the covenant that I am establishing. I have established, and I am establishing, and I will establish between me and all flesh that is on the earth. I have 2 questions for you. On this first season of Lent, in this time when we're remembering what the United Church of Canada actually says it believes, and we begin to wonder about the nature of God and what we believe as a people of faith, how does this story land on you today? What do you hear? Would you sign off on the trade agreement? Would you be a second party to the agreement? There's an offer made, and it's a timeless offer. It does not go away. It's a permanent and timeless offer. Would you say yes? Would you? before you say yes, consider the implications of saying yes. What are the implications of saying yes? I'll say it another way. What's the cost of saying yes? I hear this. Life will not be cut off from anyone, anything. God's concern is for all creation. I heard equality here today. Let me offer the implications before you say yes in another way. There is no life for any one of us if life is cut off for just one of us. There is no justice on the earth if just one of us lives without justice. There is no peace on the earth if just one of us lives without peace. And not just human beings. All life, all flesh of every kind upon the earth. I think those are the implications. I'm not sure I can say yes. I'm not sure I can. But the offer will be made. I am making it. I have made it. I will make it according to God. May the word and the wonder of this covenant, may the wonder of the rainbow, may its promise hold us equally spellbound in awe as we live into the implications that with God, all really does mean all.